Hey everyone, my name is Eleanor and it's an absolute pleasure being here. A bit about myself. I grew up in New Zealand and I'm currently based in Tel Aviv. My biggest passion has always been around making sure that new and cutting edge technologies are used and leveraged in a way that actually benefits us. I started this during my PhD days, where I made sure that my research didn't just end up in a lab and a few journals, and it rather actually was used in industry. And I've actually been doing that ever since in my various roles, really focusing on the interaction between tech and business. Currently, I'm leading the solution architecture team at Rookout, where we bring an amazing set of dynamic observability tools to customers around the world. Bringing and actually getting a new tool integrated is hard, but not impossible. My hope is that after the discussion today, you'll have a bit more insight into where the challenges stem from and how we can overcome these. With the hope being that you'll be able to drive adoption of whatever tool you have identified as beneficial to your team. First things first, installing a tool doesn't actually mean that you'll use it. And that's something critical to remember, because oftentimes we end up installing something, try it out, give it a go for a few days, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it will stick. And that's fine. Not every tool or application has to stick. Put developer tools aside, I probably download 5 to 10 new apps a month, and most times they don't stick. As a matter of fact, I have a habit to go through my apps every so often and delete the ones that don't bring me any benefit. But what I want to focus here are the tools that we truly believe are going to drive benefit to our daily workflow. The ones we've tested and we believe are going to be useful. The ones that will make us and the rest of our team work more effectively. Not everything sticks as quickly or as painlessly as some of the tools that you take for granted, and that's okay. Our job as people driving change in organizations is to focus on how we can drive that adoption. Now, why is that even an issue? Why not let people just pick the tools they want to use and let them roll with it? Well, a Stack Overflow survey found that 75% of developers said that they needed to learn how to use a new tool in order to do their jobs effectively. So that's 3 out of every 4 developers, and we always churn. We always have staff turnover. So it's safe to say that not all your team members are used to using the same tools. They'll need to adapt to use the tools that you're using. More so, with the release of new tools and new capabilities that didn't previously exist, we need to work on introducing that to the team effectively as well. And it can be exhausting. Look, we always use a ton of different technologies, softwares, and tools. I started putting this slide together and realized that if I was to put all the logos of tools that I'm using and the ones that my team are using, it will take me hours. So I just stopped there. But yes, it's a never-ending list, and we've got to be mindful of when we do introduce new tools, because there is fatigue, and it's only human to resist change when we get it. So ultimately, we don't want to spend 20% of our days installing and learning how to use tools. Rather, we want to do it smartly. So as a warm-up, let's put ourselves in the shoes of someone who has to make a decision now. Say I have to choose between 2 tools to manage my source code. There's tool A, the blue tool, which I've used for years and I know inside out. I already have an account set up with a profile and lots of followers. But I've recently joined a new team and they're using tool B, the green tool. We've all been there before and we know we need to make the change, but boy, there's so much internal resistance. And I know most of you will be able to relate. But why does this actually happen? As humans, we are hardwired to resist change. Our brains interpret change as a threat and releases the hormones for fear, fight or flight. Our body's actually protecting us from change. And I know this sounds all dramatic, but it's what happens. That is why so many people in the organization, when presented with a new initiative or an idea, even a good one with tons of benefit, will resist it. This stems from many reasons, and here I have some of the drivers that cause averse to change. Resistance to change can actually manifest itself in many ways. We can drag our feet, really slowing down progress, but it can also result in sabotage or outright rebellion. And I'm sure we've all seen this play out in organizations, especially when it comes to big changes in the way we work. The way to really overcome this is for us to understand why the resistance is there in the first place and then strategize around it. There's the additional work, losing control of how things are done, an increased level of uncertainty around how things will and how they will operate. You're bound to be hit by surprises along the way. We're afraid that something will go wrong and it'll make us look bad. We're also afraid of the repercussions of things going back. We might have had bad experiences in the past with things actually going wrong, and we don't want to repeat that. And maybe we're just concerned about whether we'll be able to use the new tool or not. Now, we won't go through all of these points in detail, but it was important for me to surface these and the fact that there are many reasons behind why people are afraid of change. As you work through strategizing on how you bring a new tool and how you get the team to adopt it in the first place, you need to actually be sure that the tool is going to bring value to the team. And that's critical. I'm talking about a tool that will actually make an impact, not something that will look pretty or nice, or some vanity project that will make your team look as if they're super innovative and bringing something new. We want something that will add value. For example, if you're looking at how your team can use a new CI tool, make sure that the options that you bring actually make a difference and they'll actually make it worthwhile going through the change and getting everyone on board. Or if you're looking at introducing a dynamic observability tool, for example, like what we do, remember that it goes against the way people were taught how to work. So do your due diligence first and make sure that it will be worth the effort of bringing it into the team. On the dynamic observability front, I'm totally biased and a true believer that it is worth the effort, but it's still important for you to do your research first. Okay, so let's see how we do this. Our goal here is to get a certain tool to be the go-to tool for your team. Now, this is relevant if you're a developer and you found something that would really benefit the team, which you want to bring into the team and drive change from the bottom up. And it's also relevant if you're in management or if you want to introduce a new capability. The same things are also true for a vendor trying to get adoption up in the company that they've sold to. So what does success look like? For a tool like Rookout that helps people debug their applications in production, it would be that every time that there's an issue, be it small or a major bug, people would use Rookout as their go-to tool. Without even thinking about it, they would instinctively go to use it. If the tool is an IDE, it would be that as a developer, I would start my day by having the IDE open, and I wouldn't use other editors because they're easier or because I'm used to using them. Even if it's a tool that I'm not expected to use on a daily basis, and I want to use an example not from our field here, but something that most people have, take an insurance policy. Successful adoption would mean that I know exactly who to contact when I have a claim to make, that I can make the claim painlessly and quickly. And once we've really evaluated the tool and are convinced that it's the right one, the next thing we want to do is work on addressing some of the challenges we looked at before around change. Here I'll focus on the ones that I believed hold us back the most. Challenge 1, this new tool is just going to create extra work. By far, one of the most universal challenges around bringing in a new tool is the fact that it will create more work. There's no way around it. Even something with the smoothest installation and onboarding process will require some upfront effort, be it by the end users or people around them. I'm sure you've seen this cartoon before. It's a great reminder. We often need to take a step back, understand the bigger picture, and not simply be stuck in our day-to-day running. If you ask any of my colleagues, I've been guilty of this myself. Instead of putting in the effort up front, I often just put up with something that doesn't really work, but because I know how to use it and I know that it will get the job done, I stick to it. Change is indeed more work. Those closest to change in terms of designing and testing it are often overloaded. And we're not just looking at the work around the implementation side of things. Remember that there's inevitably going to be these unanticipated glitches, and people will need to work there as well. What's important here is to acknowledge the hard work of change by allowing some people to focus exclusively on it, or, add extra perks to those involved. We need to reward and recognize participants who put other things aside in order to enable the change. All right, challenge 2, dealing with past resentment. Now listen, the ghosts of the past are always lying and are waiting to haunt us. And this is one of the things that we have to deal with if we want to introduce a new tool. As long as everything is running smoothly, everything's okay. But the minute you need cooperation for something new or different, these ghosts spring back into action. It might sound dramatic, but old wounds reopen and bad memories come to play. It happens to all of us. If you did indeed make the transition to using a tool, say a new form of cloud storage, and the moment you needed to gain access to your files, the system was down and you weren't able to get them, you were burnt. Now, it's only natural that you wouldn't have such a strong appetite for trying out another cloud storage capability, because you know well and clear that things can go wrong. All right, third challenge, too much uncertainty. This is especially noticeable in situations where we don't drive the change, but someone else does. There is the saying that goes, better the devil you know than the devil you don't know. And that also holds true for dev tools. Even if the tool that I'm using is not the best, I know it's not the greatest, I always know its limitations, its issues and bugs, and I have probably created a way around those for myself. A new tool, on the other hand, is a complete unknown, and that's scary. With all these challenges, I want to take some time to focus on what we can really do to drive the adoption of new tools. I'll share some of what we've learned from working with a large array of customers over the last few years. But what I share is relevant if you're driving change from the bottom up, or if you're a manager trying to implement a new tool in the team. It's not just for vendors. Now, the way I see it, there are 3 pillars that we should focus on when it comes to introducing new tools. There is the tool at hand, the people involved, and the processes around it. When it comes to the tools themselves, the most important thing is that it adds value to the team. And we've been through that. This comes at an earlier stage, but it's paramount to ensure that the tool really will make an impact. And I keep on emphasizing that that's crucial. Again, there's no point doing a vanity project or bringing in new innovation just for the sake of it. Once you've really decided that it is an important tool to introduce to the team, it's paramount to ensure that it works. In our case, we bring live debugging platforms to teams. Before we even start introducing the team members to how to use the tool, we make sure that everything is deployed correctly, that it is configured right, and that it works. And by works, I don't just mean POC works, I mean fully deployed. It means that it's ready to be used by the team members for whatever debugging processes they have on whatever instances or applications they need. Third, we want to make sure that the tool is fully integrated into existing architecture and capabilities before we bring it to the developers. That means that if we need to set up SSO, we do that. If we need to integrate to communication platforms, say Slack or Teams, that's all sorted. We want to make sure that people's workflows don't change too drastically. So all these small things really make a difference. On the people front, we should always plant the seeds gradually. Instead of making a drastic change all at once and telling everyone that they have to use a certain tool from today, we want to continuously share the process of evaluating and integrating this new tool. We want to involve people with us on the journey, to sprinkle hints of what might be coming, to seek input and to gradually get them on board. Second is that whenever we demonstrate the capabilities of the tool, we want to focus on doing that on the devs environments. If you're bringing a new ID, don't show a demo of a language that the team doesn't develop in. Make the demo relatable. Show them how they might use it. This is something that we really push on in Rookout, making demos as relevant and as applicable to our end users, and making sure that they can see themselves using the tool. The third point here is around having a strong champion from within. The champion might be indeed you who's driving the change, and that's great. But I guess this is an important point for vendors trying to get adoption for their tools within their customers' team. We must have a strong champion who's influential and people respect in order to drive that change. And that person must be from within the team. People need to trust the tool. And if someone that they look up to shares excitement and enthusiasm, it will get them on board. Better yet is when they share success stories of how the tool helped them in their day-to-day. On to our last pillar, processes. Onboarding your users is so critical to getting adoption on a tool. Even if everything is set up correctly and the team is excited about it, if they don't know how to use the tool properly, they'll never return after trying it out and not knowing what to do. Here, we make an emphasis around running training sessions on how to use the tool. We run an hour-long workshop where users log in, configure everything they need to, and actually start using Rookout to debug their applications. We go through how to use the features on their environment and how they can use Rookout for something that's relevant for them. They leave the session having used the product and having seen the benefit, and are then a lot more likely to come back and return and hopefully successfully debug their applications. Second is around having continuous touch points. Remember that we need to strengthen a muscle here, especially if you're introducing a new tool that has new capabilities and it's not something that's just replacing something that existed in the past. People form habits and it takes time to form new habits. So we need to find ways to remind people to use the tool. Having internal champions share success stories of how they benefit from the tool is one way of doing that. And if you can introduce new features every so often to re-engage with users, that's also something quite powerful. Lastly, it's vital to have a support network. This can be in the form of an internal knowledge base, office hours, or online help. Whatever platform you need to have to make sure that people can feel comfortable reaching out if they have questions, that will make a huge difference. So we've reviewed a lot, and it's good to always remember that change is hard. In saying that, we need to continuously evolve. So it is important that we have the right tools to introduce new and innovative technologies that will help us work more effectively. I hope that you managed to take away some useful tools and points out of this, and that you keep innovating and evolving. Thank you, and let's continue the conversation online. Cheers.